YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. Welcome to my review for Power Rangers Universe Issue 2. When we last left off, the Morphonaut had just come out of this portal and there was this crazy attack going on. And quite frankly, I don't know why I said quite frankly, you know, the last issue was a little bit confusing. They were throwing a lot at you and I felt structurally it was just very odd. I really liked what was going on in it, but it was just kind of hard to follow, to be honest. Thankfully, I thought this issue was much improved, you know, mainly because what was going on was a lot easier to follow, like the core actions, so you could sort of appreciate the details thrown in because you weren't constantly trying to figure out what you were supposed to follow. Because effectively, the main plot of this episode is just this attack is going on, and these new characters are trying to get the Morphonaut to safety. And that's pretty much the basics of what's going on, so you're able to follow that and appreciate the stuff we learn in between. Which is really nice, because within this attack, this like dark specter substance is attacking. I mean, there are like actual beings, but there's also this substance that can like take over people. And that's shown when it takes over this T-Rex guy, and then like later one of the beings tries to attack them and Morphonaut grabs him, and he like purifies it, and it turns out to be one of their friends. And it's that reveals to us that the reason Dark Spectre is after the grid is not because he's trying to break into it to steal its powers or create his own Power Rangers or anything like that. He's after the grid because it's like his antithesis. Like the grid is his anti-him. Well, it's his weakness, so that's why he's trying to destroy it. And since Morphonaut is all, you know, amped up with all this Morphin Grid energy, he's able to purify that being, and we discover that mythology bit about Dark Spectre, which is really nice. And speaking of Morphonaut, though, you know, after coming out, it's all, like, saturated in Morphin Grid energy. And when they're inspecting him, they're like, I don't even know how much him is him anymore. And they're trying to figure out how to get him out of safety. They don't get him out of safety. Put him in the line of fire. Trying to figure out how to get him out of here, but they're also trying to figure out, like, what's up with them? How do we fix him? And that creates kind of the ultimate resolution for the end of the issue, is they're like, okay, well, we can fix him maybe, but if we all take a part of the spectrum of the Morphing Grid and split the energy amongst ourselves. And that's what happens at the end of the issue. At the end of the issue, they all, like, tap into this device and they all connect to the grid and sort of take some of the energy for themselves. And this results in them all transforming into Rangers from past history. Our past history, we get to see them. And I have several thoughts about this. I mean, first of all, if you're confused by why they're transforming into these Rangers even though they haven't been invented yet, it's kind of the same concept as the emissaries, as the grid is kind of beyond time. You know, like if you see the emissaries talking to the MMPR Rangers, they're flashing between like not only MMPR powers, but Beast Morphers and Wild Force and Dino Thunder because the grid is beyond time. So that's sort of a similar idea, and I really like that. I dig that idea just for the concept of the grid and the grid mythology, and I like the idea of them transforming into these Ranger powers based on that idea, that the grid is timeless. With that being said, two notes. One, on a superficial level, and no disrespect to the people that draw it, but the art looks very weird for it, at least in my opinion. They're very, very stylized. I'm not sure if all of that's just meant to be because of the art style or if there's like story reason behind it. I mainly say that because like Zeo3's helmet is like protruding out with like gold. I don't remember if it has gold, but it was definitely protruding out, which looks a little strange. Yellow is like really muscly because it's like a male Yellow Ranger, but it just, the proportions on these remind me of like that old school Power Rangers art they would use on sometimes like official things of like the muscly Rangers. Like, you know, everyone loves to like make fun of or do digs at Bandai for the old muscly figures, but like back in the day, sometimes you would have like licensed products like pencil cases or birthday cards or, you know, the old Zeo comics that had really weirdly muscly proportioned Rangers. I also happen to think of, like, there was one in the Disney era, I think, that was like a muscly caped MMPR Red, and that's what these reminded me of. And it just looked weird. Like, again, this is just an art style choice, and that will happen a lot. Like in the current Power Rangers Mighty Morphin crossover, when they draw the Mighty Morphin team in the Power Rangers comic, it looks strange compared to what I'm used to, but these just looked strange. My other thought was, you know, and this is kind of more of a nitpick, but even though, you know, obviously it's kind of cool to see these Rangers we know, it would make more sense if they had at least one or two Rangers that weren't like our Rangers exactly. So convenient that all of these Rangers happen to be ones from our Earth history. I think that they could have taken one or two and made them non-Earth Rangers, like maybe one Alien Ranger and then like one New Powers. Because we have, you know, debuted New Powers in Super Mega Force as well as a couple times in the comic, and it would have made it just seem a little bit more realistic. Like, considering, especially in the comics, the Power Rangers is a concept all throughout the galaxy or the universe, it's just so convenient that all the ones they tapped into happen to be from Earth. Alien Rangers would have been a good way to go around that because we know them, but they're also an Alien Ranger. Same thing with New Powers. It's a nitpick. Maybe there's a reason for it, who knows? Maybe because Morphonaut becomes Phantom Ranger, his connection to the grid is intrinsically tied beyond time to Earth, so that's why. Maybe that's it. But I'm just saying, if that's not the case and there's no story reason for it, it's a small nitpick. It's not like I'm like, oh, this issue's crap because of that. It was just something I happened to think of. Regardless, they're all transformed at the end and they're ready to face an attack from this villain who's like one of Dark Spectre's henchmen or guards or whatever, because they ask at the end, is that Dark Spectre? And they're like, oh no, it's just like another henchman. It's not Dark Spectre, he can't come through yet. Yeah, though, I liked this issue a lot more. In general, I do like this series because I really like the mythology they're laying down and I'm excited to get to the origins for Squadron. But like I said, the first issue was just a little bit poorly laid out in my opinion, at least for me, and it was a little bit too dense to start off, but this issue is much better, and I hate to make it sound like I'm stupid. I mean, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I like that it was, the action of what was going on was simpler, so it was easier to enjoy the details, whereas with the other one, I felt like I was combing through a needle in a haystack. But this issue was a lot better for that, and it was easier to follow, and there was some nice mythology bits within it that you could pick out. And so overall, I would give this issue a 3 out of 5. I still really enjoyed it, and I still liked the series. It wasn't like the most amazing issue ever, but I thought that I think we're on a better path now, where I think the following issues will be a lot easier to follow, and I'll probably go back and reread the whole thing once it's done. Speaking of that, I couldn't help but think during this issue, thinking back on issue 1 while reading it, as I kind of wish that instead of this being a little mini-series that releases every so often, that we got just a graphic novel, kind of like the previous, Time Force 1, Soul of the Dragon. I think that may have been better. We'll see once the story's done. But I think with the kind of confusing first issue, that just a graphic novel you could read from start to finish would have made this a lot easier to follow and a lot better of a flow. Maybe that's just me. But what did you guys think of the issue? What did you think of the unique Ranger transformation? Let me know in the comments as always. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.